Get out and stay where I can see you so you don't cause any more trouble. You look like a fraud and don't belong here, so I won't serve you." The bank manager shouted, pointing at the black schoolgirl in the lobby. Soon, the security guard's grip tightened around 14-year-old Ayanna Johnson's arm as he marched her across the marble floor of Montrose Trust Bank. Every eye in the busy branch turned to watch the spectacle, a young black girl in a private school uniform being forcefully escorted away from the teller counter. "Stand right here. Don't move," the guard ordered, positioning Ayanna in a corner far from the exit, visible to everyone yet isolated. The humiliation burned on her face as wealthy customers whispered and stared. Miss Charlton, the bank's manager, stood with arms crossed and a satisfied smirk spreading across her face. Panic rose in Ayanna's chest. All she came to do was return a $1 billion check she found outside, and now she was being humiliated. She frantically searched through her backpack. Her school ID and all her documents had been confiscated, and now she realized something else was missing. Her heart sank. "My phone? I left it at school during debate practice," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, I just need to call my mother. She's expecting me home soon." "Miss?" Charlton walked past, designer heels clicking sharply against the floor. "That's not our problem," she said without even looking at Ayanna. "You'll wait there until we're done verifying your documents, if they're even real." What the arrogant bank manager doesn't realize is exactly who this young girl's mother is, and she's about to learn a powerful lesson about prejudice, discrimination, and consequences. If this is your first time here, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story delivers the most satisfying instant karma you've ever seen. You don't want to miss it. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the polished sidewalks of downtown as 14-year-old Ayanna Johnson made her way home from Westlake Academy. Unlike most days when she'd take the bus straight home, today was different. Her debate team meeting had run late, and she decided to walk through the financial district, a shortcut she rarely took. Ayanna was a bright student with ambitions bigger than most adults could fathom. She had already mapped out her future. Graduate at the top of her class, attend Howard University on a full scholarship, and eventually become an attorney like her mother always encouraged. But today, fate had other plans for her. As she passed the imposing glass facade of Montrose Trust Bank, a gleaming black Bentley pulled up to the curb. The driver, dressed in an impeccable suit, hurried around to open the door for his passenger, a distinguished man in his 60s who exited the vehicle with purpose, clutching a leather portfolio. In his haste, something fluttered from the portfolio to the ground. "Sir, you dropped something," Ayanna called out, but the man had already disappeared through the revolving doors of the bank. Ayanna approached the fallen paper cautiously. When she picked it up, her eyes widened. It was a check. Not just any check, but one with more zeros than she had ever seen in her life. $1 billion, made out to Montrose Capital Holdings. The name triggered something in her memory. Montrose. Where had she heard that name before? Her mother occasionally mentioned various financial institutions during dinner conversations, but Ayanna couldn't place this particular one. She stood there, the weight of the check feeling much heavier than the paper it was printed on. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Always do right, even when nobody's watching. Especially when nobody's watching. "I need to return this," she whispered to herself, turning toward the imposing bank building. "Someone must be having a very bad day right about now." The revolving doors of Montrose Trust Bank transported Ayanna from the warm spring afternoon into a world of marble, brass, and quiet wealth. The lobby stretched before her like a cathedral to commerce. Soaring ceilings, polished floors that reflected the enormous crystal chandeliers, and the constant, reverent hush of money changing hands. Ayanna's sneakers squeaked against the marble floor as she walked toward the reception desk. Several people in expensive suits turned to look at her, their expressions ranging from surprise to disapproval. She suddenly became acutely aware of her school uniform. A simple navy blazer over a white shirt, paired with a pleated skirt. The receptionist, a woman with platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, didn't look up from her computer when Ayanna approached. "Excuse me," Ayanna said politely. The woman continued typing, ignoring her completely. "Excuse me, ma'am." Ayana tried again, this time slightly louder. The receptionist finally looked up, her eyes narrowing as they traveled from Ayana's backpack to her face. "The community outreach program is on Thursdays," she said dismissively. "We don't have any student activities today." "Oh, I'm not here for a program," Ayana explained, reaching into her pocket. "I found this outside, and I think someone from the bank dropped it. I wanted to return it to the right person." The receptionist's eyes darted to the folded check in Ayana's hand, then back to her face. Her expression shifted from dismissal to suspicion. "Wait here," she commanded, picking up her phone. After a brief, hushed conversation, she pointed toward the teller windows. "Go to window 5. Miss Vernon will assist you." Ayana thanked her and walked to the indicated window, where a thin woman with glasses hanging from a pearl chain around her neck was organizing papers. "Miss Vernon?" Ayana asked tentatively. The woman looked up, her expression instantly hardening. "Yes? I found this outside," Ayana explained, sliding the check across the counter. "I think it belongs to someone who works here or a client. It's made out to Montrose Capital Holdings." Miss Vernon snatched up the check, examined it, then fixed Ayana with a cold stare. "And where exactly did you find this?" The way she emphasized the word find made Ayana's stomach tighten. "On the sidewalk outside. A man dropped it while getting out of his car." "I see." Miss Vernon's voice dripped with skepticism. "And you just happened to be walking by at that exact moment?" "Yes, ma'am. I was coming home from debate practice at Westlake Academy." "Do you know what this is?" Miss Vernon held up the check, her voice rising slightly. "This is $1 billion check for one of our most important clients." "Yes, ma'am. That's why I brought it in right away." Miss Vernon's lips curled into a smirk. "People like you don't walk in here to help. You walk in to hustle." The words hit Ayana like a physical blow. Heat rushed to her face, but she maintained her composure, remembering her mother's advice: never let them see that they've hurt you. "I'm just trying to do the right thing," Ayana said quietly. "Maybe I could speak to the CEO? This seems important." At this, Miss Vernon actually laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "The CEO? You think you can waltz in here off the street and demand to see our chief executive officer?" "I'm not demanding anything," Ayana clarified. "I just thought." "You thought wrong," Miss Vernon cut her off. "Wait here. Don't move." Miss Vernon disappeared through a door behind the teller stations, taking the check with her. 5 minutes passed, then 10. People came and went, conducting their business, occasionally glancing at Ayana with curiosity or indifference. Finally, Miss Vernon returned, accompanied by a security guard, a tall man with broad shoulders and an impassive face, and another woman in a tailored suit whom Ayana assumed was a manager based on her authoritative demeanor. "This is the girl?" Miss Vernon said to them, as if Ayana were not standing right there. The manager, whose nameplate read Miss Charlton Branch Manager, scrutinized Ayana. "Young lady, where did you get this check?" "I already told Miss Vernon. I found it outside when a man dropped it getting out of his car." "That's quite a story," Miss Charlton said, her tone making it clear she didn't believe a word. "Do you have any identification?" Ayana reached into her backpack and produced her school ID. "This is all I have with me." Miss Charlton examined the ID card, then handed it to the security guard. "Hold on to this. We need to verify some information." The security guard nodded and guided Ayana away from the teller window to a small seating area in the corner of the lobby. "Wait here," he instructed firmly. Ayana could see and hear everything happening at the teller windows from her new vantage point. Miss Vernon was speaking loudly to another customer, her voice carrying across the lobby. "Yes, we had a situation earlier. Someone is trying to pass off a fake check. Can you believe it?" Several customers turned to look at Ayana, their expressions ranging from curiosity to disdain. One woman pulled her purse closer to her body as she passed by. The young man in a business suit discreetly took out his phone and appeared to be recording the scene. "I need to call my mother," Ayana said to the security guard. "In due time," he replied, his expression revealing nothing. "But my phone is in my locker at school," she explained. "I was coming straight home." The guard remained silent, his posture unyielding. Time crawled by. 15 minutes. 30. Ayana sat perfectly still, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap, the picture of dignity despite the humiliation burning inside her. She kept her eyes forward, refusing to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her distress. As the minutes ticked by, she noticed movement in the office behind the teller stations. The blinds were partially open, and through the slats she could see Miss Charlton meeting with a man she didn't recognize. Not the man who had dropped the check, but someone else. Younger, with sharp features and an expensive watch that caught the light as he gestured. Miss Charlton slid a folder across the desk to him. Ayanna could just make out the label, Montrose Executive Transition, Client Lists. The man nodded, said something Ayanna couldn't hear, and then carefully placed the folder inside his briefcase. Harrison Wells will be pleased. Ayanna caught the tail end of Miss Charlton's sentence as her voice momentarily rose. Harrison Wells. The name triggered Ayanna's memory. Just last month she had been sitting at the breakfast table while her mother read the financial news aloud. Something about Harrison Wells and his aggressive takeover attempts of several financial institutions. He's a corporate raider, her mother had explained. He finds vulnerable companies, buys them up, and sells them off in pieces. Usually leaves hundreds of people unemployed in the process. Ayanna's attention snapped back to the present as the office door opened, and the man with the briefcase exited, nodding curtly to Miss Charlton before striding out of the bank. No one stopped him. No one questioned him. Meanwhile, she remained cornered, her school ID confiscated, with no way to contact anyone. Another hour passed. The bank's customer traffic had thinned considerably as closing time approached. Ayanna had been sitting in the same spot for nearly 3 hours now, watched over by the security guard, who occasionally checked his watch but said nothing. During this time, Ayanna had been far from idle. In her mind, she had been documenting everything, every word, every slight, every suspicious action. But she needed to record it somehow. Reaching into her backpack, she pulled out her leather-bound journal, the gift from her mother on her last birthday. I need to make some notes for homework, she explained to the guard when he gave her a questioning look. He nodded, seemingly unconcerned. Ayanna began writing, describing everything that had happened since she entered the bank. She noted the time Miss Charlton had met with the mysterious man, what little she had overheard about Harrison Wells, and the folder labeled Montrose Executive Transition Client Lists. As she wrote, she became aware of someone watching her. Looking up, she met the eyes of a young woman behind one of the teller windows, perhaps only a few years older than herself. The woman quickly looked away, but not before Ayanna caught the concern in her expression. A few minutes later, as the bank prepared to close, the young teller approached. The security guard had stepped away briefly to speak with Miss Charlton, leaving Ayanna momentarily alone. Are you okay? The young woman asked in a hushed voice. You've been standing here for hours. Ayanna nodded slightly. I'm fine, just waiting for someone to believe me. The teller glanced around nervously. I'm Melody. I saw what happened earlier. It wasn't right. Thank you, Ayanna whispered, touched by this small gesture of kindness in a day filled with dismissal and doubt. Melody hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a smartphone. Here, use my phone if you need to call someone. Just be quick about it. Ayanna took the phone gratefully. Thank you so much. As Melody walked away, pretending she hadn't stopped, Ayanna quickly dialed her mother's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Lauren Johnson speaking. Mom. Ayanna's voice was calm, controlled. I'm at your bank. They don't know who I am. A pause. Ayanna? Which branch are you at? Downtown. The main branch. She kept her voice low, aware of the security guard returning to his post nearby. They think I'm nothing. Her mother's voice took on a tone Ayanna rarely heard, razor-sharp and deadly serious. What happened? In as few words as possible, Ayanna explained about finding the check and the treatment she'd received. Then, remembering what she'd witnessed, she added, and Mom, I saw the branch manager, Miss Charlton, give a folder to someone. It said Montrose Executive Transition Client Lists. She mentioned Harrison Wells. Her mother was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was calm but with an undercurrent of steel. Tell no one who you are. I'm on my way. The bank was officially closed now, though several employees remained, finishing end-of-day procedures. Ayanna had been moved to a chair near the branch manager's office, still under the watchful eye of the security guard. Miss Vernon was counting her drawer, occasionally glancing in Ayanna's direction with undisguised contempt. The main doors opened, causing heads to turn. Bank hours were over. No more customers should be entering. But this was no ordinary visitor. A woman strode in, tall, commanding, dressed in a custom navy suit that spoke of both wealth and taste. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant twist, and she carried herself with the ease of someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. The effect on the bank employees was immediate and electric. Backs straightened, whispers erupted. Miss Charlton emerged from her office, a practiced smile plastered on her face. "Dr. Johnson, what an unexpected pleasure. Had we known you were coming." But Lauren Johnson, CEO of Montrose Financial Group, parent company of Montrose Trust Bank, was not listening. Her eyes had locked onto Ayanna across the lobby. Without acknowledging Miss Charlton or anyone else, Dr. Johnson walked directly to where her daughter sat and enveloped her in a warm embrace. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly. Ayanna nodded against her mother's shoulder. "I'm fine, Mom." The silence in the bank was deafening. Miss Vernon stood frozen behind her counter, her face draining of color as realization dawned. Miss Charlton recovered first, her voice unnaturally high. "Dr. Johnson, I had no idea. This young lady is my daughter." Dr. Johnson completed the sentence, her voice perfectly controlled. "Yes." She turned to face the assembled employees, one arm still protectively around Ayanna's shoulders. "Would someone care to explain why my 14-year-old daughter has been detained in this branch for the past 4 hours?" Miss Vernon stepped forward, her hands visibly trembling. "Dr. Johnson, I didn't know who she was." Dr. Johnson's gaze was penetrating. "So had she been someone else's daughter, this is how you would have treated her?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. The entire bank had fallen silent. Dr. Lauren Johnson stood with her arm gently around her daughter, surveying the room with the composed authority of a leader who had just discovered betrayal within her ranks. Miss Vernon continued to stammer, her prior confidence evaporated. "I was just following protocol for suspicious activity." "What suspicious activity?" Dr. Johnson's voice was calm but cold. "Finding a check and attempting to return it? Is that what we consider suspicious now?" No one answered. The security guard had the decency to look ashamed. Then, from the back of the room, a voice spoke up. "She stood here for hours. Wasn't allowed to call. They took her documents." It was Melody, the kind teller who had lent Ayanna her phone. She stepped forward, courage evident in every line of her body despite her obvious nervousness. "Miss Charlton called security," she continued. I gave her my phone to call you." Dr. Johnson's expression softened slightly as she looked at Melody. "Thank you. You showed more integrity in 1 hour than most show in a lifetime." She turned back to the rest of the staff, her expression hardening once more. "I want to be absolutely clear. What happened here today was not protocol. It was prejudice. It was discrimination, and it is absolutely unacceptable in any institution bearing the Montrose name." Ayanna tugged gently at her mother's sleeve. "Mom," she gave Harrison Wells a folder. "I saw everything." Dr. Johnson's eyes narrowed. "What folder, sweetheart?" It said Montrose Executive Transition, Client Lists. I wrote it down in my journal. Dr. Johnson's expression changed from anger to alarm. She turned to her executive assistant, who had been quietly standing by the door since their arrival. "Lock the doors. No one leaves." The assistant nodded and moved quickly to secure the front entrance. Dr. Johnson addressed the room at large. "That folder contained confidential information about our executive restructuring and our top-tier clients. If it's in Harrison Wells' hands, we're looking at a major security breach and potential corporate espionage." Miss Charlton's face had gone white. "Dr. Johnson, I can explain." "Save it for the board," Dr. Johnson cut her off, then turned to her assistant. "Pull the security footage from Miss Charlton's office for the past 4 hours. Within minutes, the assistant had accessed the security system. The bank's monitors, usually displaying exchange rates and promotional material, now showed clear footage of Miss Charlton meeting with a man identified as Harrison Wells's proxy, handing over the confidential folder. Dr. Johnson watched the footage in silence, her expression growing more grim by the second. When it was over, she turned to face her employees. What we have here is more than just a case of racial profiling, though that alone would be enough for immediate termination. We also have evidence of corporate espionage, attempted sabotage of our business, and a breach of fiduciary duty. She looked directly at Miss Vernon. You are fired, effective immediately. Please surrender your credentials and clear out your station. Miss Vernon seemed to shrink under Dr. Johnson's gaze. But I've been with Montrose for 15 years. And in one day, you've demonstrated that those 15 years taught you nothing about our values, Dr. Johnson replied. Security will escort you out. Next, she turned to Miss Charlton. As for you, what you've done constitutes not just a violation of company policy, but potentially criminal activity. Corporate espionage is a federal offense. As if on cue, two men in suits entered the bank, flashing badges. Dr. Johnson had apparently made a call before arriving. These gentlemen from the FBI would like to speak with you about your relationship with Harrison Wells and the confidential information you've been providing him. Miss Charlton was led away in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. As she passed Ayanna, their eyes met briefly, Miss Charlton's wide, with the dawning realization of just how badly she had miscalculated. After they had gone, Dr. Johnson addressed the remaining staff. Tomorrow, we will begin a comprehensive review of our hiring practices, our training procedures, and our corporate culture. What happened today is not who we are, or at least, not who we will be moving forward. She turned to Melody, who had been watching the proceedings with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Melody, is it? I'd like you to head our new customer experience initiative. Your first assignment will be to develop training on equitable treatment for all clients, regardless of age, race, or appearance. Melody blinked in surprise. Me? But I'm just a teller. Not anymore, Dr. Johnson said with a smile. Sometimes the best perspective comes from those who have been watching from the sidelines. Finally, she turned to her daughter. And Ayanna, your observation skills and courage have potentially saved this company from a hostile takeover. The Montrose Equity and Access Scholarship Program will be established in your name. Ayanna smiled up at her mother, the tension of the day finally releasing its grip. I just did what you always taught me to do. Lauren Johnson hugged her daughter close. And that's the most important lesson of all. Do what's right, especially when it's hard. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Johnson paused at the door. One more thing. That $1 billion check Ayanna found? It was real. And because of her, it's back where it belongs, instead of in the hands of those who would use it to dismantle everything we've built. She looked around at the staff one last time. Remember this day. Remember that integrity doesn't come with a job title or a salary. It comes from within, and it matters more than anything else we do. With that, mother and daughter walked out into the evening light, leaving behind a bank forever changed by a simple act of honesty and the courage to stand up for what's right.